Today, once again, our people are returning home from Russian captivity. And once again, terrorists are striking Odesa, taking the lives of civilians. All the main events of the day, both painful and inspiring, are being covered in the joint marathon by the channel 1+1. It is now the 1,213th day of the full-scale Russian invasion. And now the day summary from the TSN team, a chance for a diplomatic solution in the war between Iran and Israel. Talks have begun in Geneva between European countries and Iran regarding the nuclear program. The main diplomats from the United Kingdom, Germany, France, and of course Iran are taking part in these talks. Expectations for a breakthrough at these negotiations are low. However, the Europeans will try to return to the path of diplomatic discussion regarding Iran's nuclear program. Sources in diplomatic circles reported before the start of the talks that the European ministers might inform the Iranians about the United States' readiness for direct negotiations. Meanwhile, sources from the Iranian delegation cited by Reuters say that Iran is ready to discuss limits on uranium enrichment, of course, but any proposal that would completely prohibit uranium enrichment will be rejected by Iran. It is precisely the fact that Tehran is on the verge of being able to create nuclear weapons that served as the pretext under which Israel attacked the Iranians last Friday. And now, the latest ultimatum from Trump. The American president has given Iran another 2 weeks to resolve the issue of its nuclear program through negotiations. This was stated at a briefing by White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt. Publicly, Donald Trump has left open the question of potential U.S. involvement in Israel's strikes on Iranian targets. The American press reported that Trump considered destroying the underground uranium enrichment facility at Fordo, and that only the United States possesses the necessary weaponry for this. Reuters, citing 3 diplomatic sources, writes that unofficially Tehran and Washington have already held talks following the Israeli strikes. This week, Trump even left the G7 summit early without meeting with the president of Ukraine because, as was claimed, he was in a hurry to resolve the conflict between Israel and Iran. But as we can see, he is also in no rush to intervene in the war on Israel's side. What is Trump's strategy and goal regarding the Middle East, and how might this affect Ukraine? We will discuss this with TSN's own correspondent in the United States, Olha Koshelenko. She's already live with us from Washington. Olya, so at the beginning of the week, Trump said that in literally a day or two, he would decide whether the United States would also bomb Iran or not. Now, he is already saying that the decision will be made in about a week or two. Where has this decisiveness of Trump gone? Because when he called for everyone to immediately evacuate from Tehran, it seemed like the decision had already been made, that it was about to happen any moment.
Yes, greetings, colleague. A change in rhetoric from belligerent indeed. At the beginning of the week, Trump stated that there could be no ceasefire between Israel and Iran, that only a complete renunciation by Tehran of its intentions to develop nuclear weapons and in general any nuclear research would be acceptable, that there could be no negotiations either, that it was already too late. Trump even publicly contradicted the words of French President Macron, because Macron had said that Trump was considering the possibility of a peaceful settlement, to which Trump responded that Macron was misunderstanding everything. But in recent days, we have indeed observed that his determination, well, in his words, has become much less pronounced. Now, we really are hearing about 2 weeks, and that supposedly they will now be decisive. The American press writes about the extraordinary resistance from the MAGA, the radical wing of the Republican Party, on which Donald Trump relies. And in fact, this is the wing that he created. This is his asset. The magician does not want war. Let me remind you that in his inaugural speech, Donald Trump also said that the success of the United States would be measured by the wars they do not enter. This internal conflict is spilling out into the open. Trump even insulted the popular mega blogger Tucker Carlson on the social network Truth Social. He literally wrote, "Someone tell the crazy Carlson that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons." Trump's trust was also allegedly undermined by the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, a staunch supporter of Trump. But she's also against U.S. involvement in foreign military operations, NBC News reports, citing its sources. And now, allegedly, because of this, she is no longer being invited to meetings. And Donald Trump himself is now speaking very critically about Tulsi Gabbard and her testimony in Congress. When he was asked about her statements in Congress, where she said that Iran has not yet come close to completing its nuclear program, Trump replied that he doesn't care what she thinks. And the Wall Street Journal, citing its sources, wrote that Trump has already chosen one of the scenarios for how events might unfold from those that were presented to him, but that he hasn't activated it yet. To this, Trump himself responded that the Wall Street Journal has no idea how he is going to act. And his spokesperson the day before read out a statement from the president and also spoke in very vague and very non-specific terms about possible developments. Please, let's listen to the direct quote.
It is a fact that there is a substantial chance.
He said in the statement I just read to you that based on the fact that there is a substantial chance of negotiations with Iran, which may or may not take place in the near future, he will make a decision within the next 2 weeks. What makes him think that significant changes are possible? The president will strike. The president is saying, I am not going to get into speculation or reasoning. That is what the president believes. It is his position, and he will make a decision within the next 2 weeks. Well, we've already heard something similar about the next 2 weeks being decisive regarding Russia's war against Ukraine, and we've heard it more than once. Trump is now completely ignoring this topic. I mean, the topic of our war. He did not take part in the G7 meeting this week in Canada, specifically on the day that was supposed to be and was dedicated to the issue of Ukraine. And as he was leaving Kananaskis on his plane, he actually said that he had accomplished everything he wanted at the summit in Canada and had no further business there. Trump did not respond to these intense Russian strikes on residential neighborhoods that took place this week. He mentioned Putin only in one context as a great friend of Iran. The Russian dictator offered his mediation services in resolving the war with Israel. But according to Trump, he supposedly advised Putin to deal with his own war first and only then take on anything else. That's all for now regarding the Ukrainian track. But next week, we are expecting an extremely important event. A NATO summit will take place in The Hague, where both President Trump and President Zelensky are expected to attend. The president of Ukraine has openly stated that he wants to talk to Donald Trump about acquiring new arms packages. So we will be watching closely to see whether their meeting takes place in the Netherlands and whether Trump is willing to hold it. Colleague.
Thank you. Thank you for the details. TSN correspondent in the United States, Olya Koshelenko, on how the White House is hesitating over whether to join the war against Iran, which Israel is already fighting, and on how the war in Ukraine has almost disappeared from Donald Trump's rhetoric this week. Meanwhile, the exchanges of fire between Israel and Iran continue unabated. It is known that the IDF struck a number of military and nuclear facilities last night. In response, Iranian missiles targeted the southern city of Beersheba. There are at least 6 people injured there and many destroyed houses. Dozens of Israelis were injured during the Iranian attacks in the north of the country. Among the victims, there is, in particular, a 51-year-old woman who died of a heart attack in a shelter. And also, Ukrainians killed in Israel. A family that not only saved children from shelling in Ukraine, but also fought for one of them, 7-year-old Nastya, to have a chance at life due to oncology. TSN spoke exclusively with a woman from Odesa who, as a result of the Iranian attack on Israel, lost 2 children, her mother, her sister, and her niece. A lot has been written about this family online, but as our interviewee says, there was a lot of inaccurate information, and it is very important for her to set the record straight. TSN correspondent Irina Kondratyuk will tell us more.
The night of June 15th, Iran strikes Israeli cities with a new type of ballistic missile. The warheads overcome the American TED defense system, as well as the Patriot system used by Israel. As a result of the attack, it becomes clear that this time the Iron Dome air defense did not protect them. One of the missiles hit an apartment building in the city of Bat Yam. This is a suburb of Tel Aviv. 12 people were killed. Among them were 5 Ukrainians.
There are simply nobodies. As I was told, they didn't have time to get downstairs. They were found under the stairs. Someone was thrown out.
That night, Hannah lost both of her sons, Ilya and Kostya, who will forever remain 14 and 10 years old, respectively. Her mother, Olena, who was 54, her sister, Maria, who was 30, and Maria's daughter, Nastya. Hannah's niece was 7 years old.
I still haven't fully accepted it. I sit at home and think, well, they're just far away. Yes, I lived a year without them, I miss them terribly, and I only realize it when I understand that I can no longer call them.
Hannah's sons moved to Israel last spring. The family believed it would be safer for the children that way. After all, in their native Odesa, the younger boy Kostya would constantly cry because of the air raid sirens and was terrified of the rockets.
They were supposed to come back in a year or two. They were already studying there. I insisted that they also attend Ukrainian school online here.
Anna's mother, her biological sister, and her niece had already been living there for over a year. At the end of 2022, they came to Israel for medical treatment. Little Nastya had a severe form of cancer. A few years before that, the family had suffered another loss. Maria's sister passed away from the same diagnosis, leukemia. They were twins. Here are their childhood photos. Little Nastya was named in her honor.
She said, if Nastya is gone, I simply won't go on living, recalls Maria's best friend and Nastya's godmother. She says that after months of endless fundraising for treatment, there were 3 extremely difficult surgeries. The little one received a bone marrow transplant, but even that didn't help.
They were just about to go to the hospital on Sunday, where Masha was supposed to be told the results of the biopsy and the possible treatment plan going forward. 5 Ukrainians, including 3 children. The farewell for this family will take place in Israel on Sunday and Monday.
I have already signed a notarized document for the cremation of the bodies because it is impossible to transport them.
It was impossible to transport the bodies to Ukraine due to the closed airspace and the unstable situation. So, for now, it is unknown when the ashes of the deceased Ukrainians will be sent to Odesa so that their relatives can also say their goodbyes. Currently, Nastya's father, Artem, is fighting at the front in memory of his daughter, Irina Kondrachuk, Olena Chernyaeva, Ivan Savchenko, and Anatoly Korop. TSN 1+1 Marathon United News.
1 person was killed and 14 others were injured. Last night, the Russians once again launched a massive attack on Odessa with strike drones. 10 impacts were recorded in the city. One of the Shaheds crashed into an apartment building and exploded inside. Several hits were recorded in another building. One of the buildings was completely burned out, and people were evacuated from apartments engulfed in flames. More about the nightmarish hell the Russians unleashed in Odessa will be reported by TSN correspondent Serhiy Osadchuk.
We are now standing near the apartment building that was attacked by one of the drones last night. As you can see behind me, there is a black hole at the level of the upper floors. I managed to enter the apartment where the strike occurred. There is total destruction there, and it is only by a miracle that people managed to survive. We spoke with a resident whose apartment is 2 floors above. Here's what she told us.
The rumble was so strong, when it hit, I honestly didn't even have time to realize what was happening. The main thing is that we're alive and everything else can be rebuilt. I'm very worried about the people who were on the floor below. They could have been hurt, they suffered more. I'm very worried, hoping there weren't any children there, because that's the most precious thing we have.
The woman is cleaning up her apartment, which is covered in glass, and recalls, after the explosions at night, the electricity immediately went out. The elevator stopped and people ran down the stairs on foot. Rescuers helped evacuate 600 residents. And here, in this residential neighborhood, several Shaheds struck the roofs of historic buildings at once. People are describing how powerful the explosions were.
There were 4 impacts within this small radius. Out of 12 entrances, almost only the first and second entrances were not damaged. In my apartment, the blast wave threw the table all the way into the hallway. Almost not a single car in the yard was left undamaged. There are more than 60 cars here.
After another drone strike, a fire broke out in the building. People ended up trapped inside the entrance, engulfed in flames. Neighbors rushed to help them.
We found out there were people inside, and the guys tried to break something open to get in, because there were bars everywhere. Then, thanks to the rescuers, the guys were able to set up a ladder. It kept slipping. A person was hanging on and managed to cut through the bars at the very last moment. Someone below was holding the ladder for him.
As soon as the woman was taken down from the window, where everything was burning, stones and flaming debris started falling from the roof. The rescuers didn't have time to jump back.
During the firefighting operation, parts of the structure collapsed. 3 of our firefighters were injured. They are all fine. Their condition is stable. They received medical assistance. In total, 9 people were injured in this building.
Psychologists worked on site with the affected residents.
It's very difficult when people are suddenly pulled out of a deep sleep like this. Naturally, it's very hard for them to get their bearings. They are disoriented, they don't know what to do, where to go, and so on. There are indeed some who hadn't managed to fall asleep yet. Their reactions were already a bit different. So, in general, you could observe completely different reactions, from confusion and disorientation to acute stress responses like crying and panic.
By morning, after the fires had been extinguished, utility workers arrived at the attack sites. Heavy machinery was also brought in to clear the debris. Next, they will assess the damage. But even now, it's clear the damage is enormous. Serhiy Osachuk, Serhiy Haleniuk, Odesa, TSN 1+1, United News Marathon.
The Russians continue to terrorize civilians. They shelled Bilozerka in the Kherson region with artillery. One of the shells landed on a private property. An elderly woman suffered shrapnel wounds. Another woman sustained a concussion and leg injuries in Daryevka. A drone attacked her near a store. And in Dniprovsk, a man was taken to the hospital after he tried to pick up a drone, which then detonated. The victim suffered a blast injury and had his foot amputated. There is 1 dead and 6 injured in Donetsk region. The Russians struck Kostiantynivka with drones and artillery, killing a local resident. Another person was wounded. Drones targeted people in Novye Donbass. There are 3 victims there. Among them is a child. 3 districts of Kharkiv became targets for drones last night. There are 3 wounded there. Among them are girls aged 12 and 17. Private houses and apartment buildings were damaged. Rescuers extinguished fires. A resident of Nikopol district was taken to the hospital in serious condition. This is already Dnipropetrovsk region. There, communities came under fire from Grad's artillery and FPV drones. Houses, 2 educational institutions, and 2 enterprises were damaged. Rescuers have already completed the search operation in the Solomyansky district of the capital, where a Russian missile destroyed an entire apartment entrance on the night of June 17th. The rescue operation lasted 39 hours straight. Overall, it was a very terrible night for Kyiv. 28 people were killed, 140 were injured. Fires broke out in 8 districts at 27 locations. Rescuers extinguished them with the help of 2 helicopters. Over 100 tons of water were dropped on the flames. Nearly 500 reports of property damage have been recorded. Among them, 150 are residential buildings. And at the site of the Russian terrorist attack, where a missile strike caused an apartment entrance to collapse, residents are gathering whatever belongings survived, while utility workers are cleaning up glass and debris. In the courtyard of the destroyed apartment building, TSN correspondent Serhiy Morgan is currently on the scene. We have him on the line right now. Serhiy, so what is happening today, a few days after the attack at the site of the terrorist act, and what are people saying? Is it possible to return at least to the neighboring entrances and buildings and live there?
Happy holidays. Well, the area is still cordoned off by law enforcement so that people who might get hurt are kept away, because volunteers continue to help clean up the damaged apartments and help board up the windows to keep out the rain, wind, and so on. So here, even though there's no heavy machinery, there are always power tools running various drills, angle grinders, and so on. And people keep coming. It's already been 4 days, and people still come and bring flowers. There are several makeshift memorials here where people honor the memory of those killed by the Russians. In total, in the Solomyansky district alone, where we are now, about 100 high-rise apartment buildings were damaged, as well as 11 educational institutions. More than 2,000 people have applied for the initial assistance that Kyiv can provide, which amounts to 10,000 hryvnias and 40 apartments, that is, 40 families have requested help with resettlement. Right now they are staying in hotels or renting apartments, while others have gone to stay with relatives. Some people have returned to the most heavily damaged building, especially entrances farther from where the Russian missile hit. Now, part of this building has even been reconnected to utilities, while some sections have not. For more specific information on this topic, please listen to the head of the Solomyansky District Council.
From the first to the fourth entrance, there is already electricity and water. The elevators are working. Electricity will be connected to the fifth and sixth entrances by the evening. There is already water. As for the elevators, they are currently being checked. For the sixth and eighth entrances, after an instrumental inspection is carried out, a decision will be made as to whether electricity and water can be connected.
So the fifth and sixth entrances, which were supposed to be connected to the electricity supply today, we've already seen them. If I'm not mistaken, there were lights on in several apartments there. As for the entrance that suffered the most damage, that's the seventh one, which is right behind me. The initial inspection suggests that it will most likely be restored. But of course, additional examinations still need to be conducted, including checks of the foundation and the walls that are closest. That's how it is. To remind you of what happened, it was on the night leading into Tuesday that a Russian missile struck here. Of the 28 Kyiv residents killed by the Russians, 23 died in this very building. Identification examinations are still ongoing now. For example, there is a story that was reported in the media about an entire family who died on the third floor. The only one who survived was their 12-year-old son, who happened to be at his grandmother's. So for now, official sources are not providing us with any names because they say they cannot confirm whether this is true until all the identification procedures are completed. At that time, by the way, more than 140 people were injured in Kyiv. If anyone is watching us now and has not yet sought help, the city council says to contact your local district council. There are headquarters operating there, and you can apply for assistance either 10,000 hryvnias or 40,000 hryvnias under certain circumstances. And if you have nowhere to live, they can either provide you with accommodation or give you 20,000 hryvnias per month for a year so that you can rent housing. Well, that's how things stand for now. That's the situation at the moment. Work to eliminate the consequences is still ongoing here.
Thank you for these details. TSN correspondent Serhiy Morgan reporting on what is currently happening at the site of the Russian terrorist attack in the capital, where an enemy missile destroyed an entire apartment entrance and killed its residents on the night before Tuesday. And now we return to an event that has been unfolding over the past several days. In accordance with the Istanbul agreements, the exchange process continues, and Ukraine is bringing its defenders back from captivity. All those released today have injuries or serious medical conditions, so they will be taken to medical centers. Our prisoners of war were met by TSN correspondents Natalia Nahorna and Nelly Kowalska, who will tell us about this extremely important day.
A few hours ago, the sixth stage of the 66 exchange took place here in the courtyard, and there is still quite a bit of commotion. People who couldn't come asked their acquaintances from this large community of relatives to pass on greetings to their loved ones who have returned. Today is simply overflowing with emotions and many stories. Today we can tell you about how the meeting for the former prisoners of war at the border took place. Right now, I invite you to watch.
I don't know how we managed to hold on, but it feels endless. Always. When I was leaving there and took them, we went through everything. I thought they would take us away, but I waited. And to get out, at least something had to happen.
It's hard. My son is military captain, serving and fighting. I just keep praying for him.
And today there were several family reunions here which were truly heartwarming to witness. The first and most striking reunion was that of a father who was captured in Mariupol. Today, here, he was reunited with his family. Right now, I invite you to watch how it happened. When did you realize that you were finally going to Ukraine, going home?
I realized it when I saw the flag. Before that, I had absolutely no idea. It was just constant, impossible dreams. I don't know. It all just sort of happened. When we saw the Ukrainian flag, when we saw our guys who came up to the buses where we were taken at the Belarusian border, and we got on our own bus and shouted, "Glory to Ukraine!" and sang the anthem, that's when I realized that we were finally home.
And here's another story about an incredible birthday present. This is the story of a family where the father was taken captive 3 years ago and returned today, right on his son's birthday. Let's take a look.
Already home.
We're alive and he's alive. That's the most important thing.
We're waiting for this man. This one.
Yes. That's right for us. A birthday present for our son. Today our son turns 27.
And what did you decide to give him?
Well, a father as a present I grew up.
Come on in, everyone. These days are just take your time. Stronger.
And it's stronger than let you breathe. Strong. We're stronger.
You go take a quick bath. We'll wait. Leave us for a minute. Let them hug. They say it's your son's birthday.
Today, yes, it's my older son's, and in 5 days, it's this one's. Actually, already had.
And the particular feature of this exchange stage is that there were no young soldiers here. We know that the 66 exchange was for the youngest from 18 to 25 years old and for people with severe wounds and serious injuries. Today, the second category was returning home. The youngest person who was released today, who gained freedom today, is 43 years old. The oldest fighter who returned today is 60 years old.
At the same time, work is underway on planned exchanges, and everyone who is in the Russian captivity, everyone for whom there is confirmed information about their presence in Russian captivity, about the fact that the person is alive, all must be brought back. And this is the systematic work of the coordination headquarters for the treatment of prisoners of war and the task set by the President of Ukraine.
And this sixth stage of the 66th exchange is not the final one. Ours will continue to return home in the coming days. Nelly Kowalska, Natalia Nahorna, Danilo Lysenko, and Ihor Siri, TSN 1+1, Marathon, United News.